Welcome. Welcome to April's Twilight Tidbits. Tonight is April 19th, and we are really excited to have with us our leadership chair for CFWC and your immediate past president of CFWC, Dory Kelsey. I've known Dory since 2004. We met at Leeds. My interview, her first year as Leeds, and I followed her, of course, as the California Leeds person. And our escapades kind of went from there because now, as most of you know, we're best friends. We talk all the time on the phone. And we even had a family sword fight at the Pompeii exhibit at the Exposition Park a couple of years ago. My husband, her husband, Dory and I, we had a nice little sword fight that we got our pictures with. I'm going to let Dory take it away. Take it away.
Okay, hello. I want to thank everyone for coming. It makes me very happy that at least there are people here. Yay. One thing I want to say really quick is thank you to all of the people that are helping me with Barbara Briley Beard's gift for convention. I have received a whole bunch of stuff today, so thank you all. I appreciate it. And no, I don't get Vendo and whatever the other things are. You have to send me snail mail, a check, or cash in a little piece of paper. So thank you all. I'm computer savvy to a point. I try hard, but okay. Okay, let's talk first about Leeds. Everybody wants to know what goes on in Leeds. It's a secret. Well, not really. Let's see, what are some of the things we teach? We want to teach you about CFWC. We want to teach you about Gfwc. We want to teach you a little bit about both history. We want to teach you about parliamentary law, a little bit. We want to teach you about goals, goal setting, planning. We want to teach you a little bit about how to do objectives. We want to teach you a little bit about, I have a list here, public speaking. And then one of the best things that we want you to do that unfortunately we didn't get to do this year is we want to teach you about board meetings. We want you to come to a board meeting normally and get to meet all the officers, all the chairman, the committee members, and everybody who are camp followers. We want you to do a little bit of schmoozing. We want you to eat with us. We want you to be a part of the board meeting so that you can see that it's not a secret. You can come anytime you want. You just have to pay for your meals. We don't give anything away, sorry. So that's kind of what it is. And I think you come away with a better understanding of what we do, how we do it, and how you can fit in the future. And that's kind of what we do. We teach you how to be a part of us, because we're not a secret society, although some people would like us to be. Okay, now I sent you 3 booklets. The first one was the value of your club. And I want to talk about it for a minute, but I'm not going to read it to you because you can read. You all went to high school, most of you at least. I'm going to, and I want you to know the value of your club and the clubs, because we don't do, I think elevator speeches are passé now. We want to teach you to talk to people about your clubs from your heart. Talk about what is the best. You got if you're on an elevator, you got 30 seconds. Tell them what you love about club. And you know what? They'll hear it because you're talking from your heart. That kind of answers about elevator speeches. I'm not a fan of them. I can do one really fast, but people want to know why did I go all the way up to be a state president? because I love what we do and what we stand for. What do we stand for? We stand for changing the world every day through projects in every kind of way. Simple. Okay, now in that booklet, we talk about things that people don't think about normally with clubs. The value of belonging. You know, we're humans. We have to belong. That's why we go to church. That's why we go to school. That's why we have family. And most people like their families and keep going back to their families because they want to belong to something better than themselves. And that's what the Women's Club is. It's greater than yourself. And it makes you do better things for it. So, okay. And then you give back, and giving back keeps you healthy. When you give back, don't you feel good about it? When you see a little kid's face that you've given a Christmas toy to, and it breaks my heart that some kids don't get things at Christmas time, even if it's only underwear and socks and a pair of pajamas. I got a new pair of pajamas every Christmas. I bet a lot of you did too. Yeah, it breaks my heart that they don't get things like that. So I'm going to make sure that they do if I can. Know your purpose, the value of kindness. We talk a lot about kindness. We don't always practice it because we're not perfect. I try really hard, but you know, I'm a Libra. And both Pam and I are Libras, that's another thing we have alike. Libras are good people, and we're kind and giving until you piss us off. And then stay out of our way. We tend to yell. Sorry. But so know the power of kindness, know that you're worth something. And the Women's Club uses your worth to make the world a better place. I think we forget that every project we do helps to make the world a better place. We enlighten people with what we do. We are making the world a better place. I have it on my the signature space for on my emails. We change the world every day, one project at a time, in every way. Every club does different things because every community is different. That's the beauty of CF and GF. We do things to make the world a better place. Gosh, it makes me happy to do that, to make the world a better place. I never thought I could do that on my own, and I can't. I need the clubs. Okay, the value of the club one, take a look at it, read it, talk to your clubs about it, print it up and pass it out, because people will need to know why they're there. They don't always understand why they're at a club meeting. Why? Because it's good for you. Okay, nobody likes that answer. Why do you want to make me do this, Mom? Because it's good for you. Okay, modern leadership. Let's define leadership. People forget that when you use words like leadership, you need to define them. A leader or leadership is the process of facilitating change, either by that person that facilitates change. It's a process of someone facilitating change. A manager doesn't facilitate change. A manager gets things done through people. Okay, a manager has to have a position to manage. A leader doesn't need a position. That's the other important thing about leadership. Okay, we've been through a lot of change this year. We've had a good leader who facilitated a lot of change and helped the CFWC world be better. Managers get things done through others, usually with a position. It's very rare that managers don't have a position. They're a manager of this, manager of that, manager of this. Leaders don't need a position. Leaders can do it with a position or without one. How many of you know somebody in your club who gets things done and is not the president? How many? Yeah, you do. And you want to pick them to be the president because they get things done. That's somebody who has personal power. And that's a trait that tends to make good leaders, but it's not necessarily needed to be a leader. Some people can buck up and be a good leader without that personal power, but it really helps. Okay. Look, I said all that stuff. The other thing that a lot of people don't do if they have personal power is they don't tend to micromanage because they don't have time. Micromanaging takes a lot of people. Now, in that modern management booklet, it tells you about 7 or 8 different kinds of people, different kinds of leadership styles. Guess what? None of us are any one of those very long because the situation changes. You changed and adapt your style to whatever's happening at the moment. Crisis management tends to make you a micromanager. Okay, when we first had COVID and we first had to cancel the convention and we first had to do all of that, and people were looking to me for answers, it was better that I give some of the answers as a micromanager than it would have been waiting for the consensus of the group. Because consensus management takes a lot of time. We had some time for to get the team together and because we had to vote to cancel the convention, right? I can't just say, okay, I'm gonna Scouts honor, I'm gonna cancel the convention. It's for your better. I have to make my position power doesn't stretch that far. But I could, but I could do some things. I could figure out how we were going to do things. And some of them I had to figure out like this right away because we had to know what we were going to do as soon as we announced we were going to cancel the convention. So you need a little more micromanaging then. But as soon as that crisis is over and we're floating through the rest of the year, we've pretty much passed that point now. We don't need a micromanager now. Now we need more consensus. We need to get you all on board to do Zoom. We need to get you all on board to be having district meetings, to be having your club meetings. So we need more consensus. Sometimes a drill sergeant comes in handy, get in line and do this. My district could have used a drill sergeant. My district has not had a meeting yet. Oops, yeah. We are having our first convention April 30th. It will be interesting since we have not had a single meeting. There were a couple people who didn't want to do Zoom on the board. We needed the drill sergeant right then saying, it doesn't matter. You will do Zoom. And if you don't feel comfortable, don't come to the meeting. But we needed, and Zoom isn't the only thing you can do. You can go on Messenger. Messenger has rooms, and you can do a room on Messenger, and it would be good for small groups like executive committees or executive boards, if your officers. It's good for a smaller group. I don't think it would be good for this big of a group, but you can, and it's free, just like Zoom. So you can do that Zoom isn't the only show in town. Some of the others, like the one that GF is doing, okay, maybe not the best. Our problem with GF is that they start the meeting in Florida, and then the meeting has to come all the way to California. And if you know anything about electronics, the farther electric impulses have to travel on a wire, the weaker they get. So by the time it gets to us, it's pretty weak. And then they can't understand why we can't talk and we can't see the videos. Okay, never mind. We'll just do our thing. California can be just fine. So the other thing that we should be saying a lot is volunteers want to work. I have to see what time it is. Volunteers want to work. We just need to put them to work. My club, which I lucked out and became president, this was a deal that I had to do. Okay, my best friend here was second vice president and wanted to be first vice president, but she didn't want to be president. And her choice to me was, you can be first vice president, or you can be president. And if you're first vice president, you can help me be president. So I can be president or assistant president. So I might as well just be president, let her train as first vice president so she can learn all the things that the first vice president has to know, and then let her be president all by herself. Sounds good to me. And one of the things that you have to remember is that whatever position you're in as a leader, you need to train somebody to take your job. Always train somebody to take your job. And what does that mean? That means share emails with them. Every time I get an email from whoever, I send it to the first vice president and the second vice president. It's not a secret. It's a job. It's a position. What happens if I died tomorrow? And hope, knocking on wood that I won't, but what happens if I did? My first vice president is trained up enough that she could step in and be okay. She wouldn't be great, but she'd be okay. Is the person following you trained up enough to do that? It should be. That's your job. That is part of the job description of a leader. Because if you were in a regular job at a regular place, they won't promote you until somebody can take your place. So if you want to be promoted, you got to have somebody ready to step in. So that's why, one of the reasons why you train somebody. And here in Volunteerville, we want to train them so that if something happens to us, and we've had that happen. Forgive the example, but Sandra Lucas was a good example. I told her to train somebody, Pam told her to train somebody, and she passed away, and we had to go hunting for the files. We found them, and then we had to find somebody that could make sense of the files and become the California magazine editor. And then she had to look through the files and figure out what the heck everything meant. Would have been easier if she had the passwords and knew what was going on. She could have just stepped right in. That's why we missed one edition of the California Clubwoman. And it's nobody's fault. So remember that. Train somebody to take your job no matter what your job is. Even the leadership chairman. If I could find somebody that would be sucker enough to take this job. But that's one of the things you have to think about, especially when you're president, first vice president, and second vice president. The first vice president has to help the second vice president. And I don't know, some clubs have third vice president, fourth vice president, and keep going. And their jobs are not always what I think they are. because it's whatever your bylaws say. So spread those bylaws around. I've been making my club members, which they're not real thrilled with because nobody wants to talk. Every officer has had to do 5 minutes on what my job is and stand up and tell everybody at a meeting what their job is. It sounds silly, but, and the treasurer was really pissed. She did not want to do this. She doesn't want anybody to know what she's doing. It's her domain. She's been treasurer for like 8 years and she doesn't want to share it. She doesn't want to, nothing, but she had to do it. And basically she told us how many checks she wrote and whatever, but she had to do something. She had to tell us something about it. And that's okay. She needed to tell people what she did so that it would demystify the treasurer. Because eventually somebody's going to have to take her job because she's older than I am, way older. And eventually she's going to come to the point where she can't do that anymore. So she needs to train somebody. Okay, now I've harped about that for way too long. Okay, we talked about Messenger, we talked about Zoom. Now let's go to my last one, which is what to do after COVID. Now, I kind of thought about this and then I thought, okay, let's see what the internet says. And I was surprised that they had a whole lot of stuff. The first thing every site said was nothing will be the same after COVID-19. Guaranteed. People will not be doing the same thing. My girlfriend, whose son works for Caltrans as an accountant, is not going back to the office in probably the next year to 2 years. They found out it saves money and he can do the same amount of accounting at home without using electricity, lights, gossiping. Men gossip. I worked with all men. Men gossip much worse than women. They're bad and they tell nasty things. But, and there's none of the expense of running an office. They even bought him a desk and a new laptop and a chair so that he could work well from home. Your tax dollars hard at work, but they are in this case. Everybody thinks that when you work at home, you're going to be goofing off. I found that most people, when they work at home, work harder. My niece and her husband, newest husband, she has a second husband. He's a sweetie guy, really nice. They're in New York and they work 8 to 10 hours instead of the whatever they were. They don't go to lunch or because they're home. They can go out to the kitchen and make a sandwich and sit down and eat it while they're doing whatever they're doing. They work harder. So, okay. That's one really good thing that came out of COVID. All those women that say we've never done it this way before, they're damn right. And we're not going back. There's an ad on TV that says, you're not going to bounce back, bounce forward. That should be our new mantra. No bouncing back, bounce forward. Do things differently. Do things better. Bounce forward. That's what we as club women need to do. Whatever you do, don't give up Zoom. I always think of that song, rock and roll is here to stay. So Zoom is here to stay. I can't sing like Pam can. Trust me, you really don't want me to do any more singing than that. It can be a bridge to new members. This evening thing that we're doing right now, you could have an evening meeting and have all the working women come into the evening meeting and Zooming. Because I don't know about you, but how many of you, when you were working, wanted to feed your kids, put them to bed, get dressed up, and go to a club meeting? No. No. How many of you wanted to do all the things you have to do with kids, go on a Saturday to a club meeting? Not so many. I had when we did our Antelope Club that did so well there for 10 years and then fizzled out, we had Saturday meetings. We tried all different times. We met at 11, we met at 12, we met at 1, and none of those times were good for everybody. So we tried everything. And with Zoom, you could meet at 5 o'clock. You could meet at 6 o'clock. You can meet at 7 o'clock. Whatever works for the working woman. And the younger ladies who you could have an after school juniorette meeting at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. You can do whatever you want with Zoom, and you can also use that messenger room if you have a small group. So don't give it up just because you don't, but also don't just do Zoom, because there's nothing like the personal hand, there's nothing like a hug. Okay, we've all had to live without hugs for a long time. But when I went to my first, we started meeting in person again at my club because I'm in the Roseville Women's Improvement Club, or the Women's Improvement Club of Roseville. I don't know which one is the real name, which is very funny, but I don't. Okay. We met September and October in person. Then we met November, December, January, February on Zoom. And then March, we went back to in person. It was so cool to see everybody. There's something about eye contact. I mean, we did the bump thing and, we all had masks on, except for me when I was up in front, because you can't do that on a microphone. It comes across like you're mumbling. So, and I'm far enough away from people and I've had my 2 vaccines, so you're not going to catch anything from me. But there's something about looking people in the eye and about seeing them and being around them and having them be able to be spontaneous and just talk to you and say, I believe in this, or Dory, you're nuts. And I've been nuts more than once. You've all known that. It's okay. It's nice to talk to people in face to face. That's not going away. You're still going to need your people skills, but don't get rid of Zoom. Okay. Messengers for small groups. Bounce forwards, not backwards. Trifolds, they're kind of going out. A lot of people don't like trifolds anymore. They take up a lot of space. They're expensive. You can go to Vista Prints and get a nice, I have one here. This is I got a little tiny box of 250 business cards for my club. See, and there's all my information. And then on the back, I have all the club information about when the club meets and where to call to get reservations. Not that they really need reservations, but it's nice to know how many people are coming. And you can get 250 of them for, I think it's $10 or $15. They charge you more to print on the back. And then here's another little trick. Tape a piece of candy on the back. Nobody throws anything away. No woman that I know that has a piece of chocolate taped on it. Think about that. No woman is ever going to throw a piece of anything away that has a piece of chocolate taped on it. And if you're smart, you spend a little extra money and tape a good piece of chocolate on it. Now, if it's summer and it's kind of hot, okay, fine. You can even tape a Tootsie Roll on it. No woman is ever going to throw a piece of candy away. It will go in her purse, and she will have to take that candy off of that business card and look at it a second time, and she'll have to and tape it on the side that says when the meeting is, and she'll have to look at that a second time. So you're guaranteed 2 looks. Simple. And if you want to, if you don't want to make personal ones, personal business cards, you can make them for the club and do the same thing on the back and give one to everybody in the club. And you can leave a little space where people can write in their names. So you can do it either way. They're not that expensive that you can't do your own. And see, I have a rose on there because it's Roseville. Now this is my leadership card. My leadership card, I did the other way. And I like cats. And I unfortunately decided that I was going to use a really fancy font. The problem is you can't read it. So make sure you use a font you can read. You can read the phone number and the cell phone number and the email address, but it's hard. But on the back, it says GFWC, California Federation of Women's Clubs, 235 clubs with over 11,000 members working to make your world a better place. Strength united is stronger. Down at the bottom there, it says on Facebook at GFWC Federation of Women's Clubs and at cfwc.org. It also, there's not enough room on the front if I leave my cute little kitty there. So I put it on the back. Use the back of the cards. Now, if I wanted to tape a little piece of chocolate on here because I'm going to some place where I need to hand a lot of these out, I could do that. But, and then every time you mail any correspondence, put one of these in there. Every time I send a donation check, no matter who it's to, for even if it's a personal reason, I put a card in there so they know that I'm a member of the California Federation of Women's Clubs. And and then what else? I think I've covered pretty much. I haven't taken up enough time. What else do you guys want me to talk about? Okay, so you can read the booklets. You've listened to my little hints. What kind of questions do you have? And please, questions, no statements. Or we do this. This is just ask me questions. And I'll do the best I can.
Okay, we can go to questions, Dory. Everyone knows how to raise your hand. If you do not have a raised hand on your particular mobile device, just show me with your hand and wave it, and I'll try my best to catch your eye. Does anyone have any questions for Dory straight off? I know you have them. Oh, I have a question from Charlotte Smith. Charlotte, you have a question?
What were the names of the 3 booklets again? The Value of Your Club, Modern Management, and
the COVID one. What to do, management after COVID. What leaders can need to do after COVID, or something to that effect. They are in the Dropbox, and those are the 3 that I sent you as my paperwork.
thank you.
And they're all in PDFs. And if you print them, two-sided and flipping the short side. And then that should make them be just perfect.
And Dory, it's called Leadership After COVID 2020 to 2022.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I've written a lot of these.
Okay.
And I forget about the names. Okay.
Okay, our next question comes from Terry. Terry, you have a question?
Unmute.
Yes, I am. Hold on just
Okay.
a sec. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say great ideas. I love the business card versus the trifold, that's a great idea. And like you said, Vistaprint is so inexpensive. I like that idea. So that's something I want to take to our club. And I like the idea of nothing's never going to be the same after COVID. I think we're all finding that out, just in our daily lives. Things are not the same. And we just have to pick up and bounce forward, like you said.
Bounce forward. I love that on TV.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, our next question comes from Wendy. Hi,
Hi,
Wendy.
Miss Dory, thank you. Suggestions
Mhm.
in how to encourage people that are not officers and are not willing to move up, suggestions about how to motivate other members.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we have not had a secretary since November. Our secretary quit because she's going blind.
Oh,
This has been the story of my life ever since I joined the women's club. Driving home from my first women's club meeting, I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, is there a reason why in the women's club they have to have a blind auditor and a deaf secretary? Why can't they pick people that is what's going on here?" And she just went, "Well, the secretary can use a tape recorder." And we have not had it, and I've had to pick people. Some of them have taken the minutes and we've never seen them again. We've had a difficult time with this. So what we did was we did this thing with the officers, and we ended up with 2 people wanting to run for secretary. Because once we demystified what we were supposed to do and explained that it wasn't this hard thing, they were more willing to step up. And the other thing I did was, when it came time for the nominating committee, I said, okay, first for the nominating committee, I'm going to stand here and whistle until 3 of you step up for the nominating committee. Now, remember, I only have 24 members. And so that means that between 15 and 20 show up for a meeting. And at this time, the first in-person meeting, 15 showed up. So I have 15 people to pick from, and I'm standing there going until 3 people volunteer. And there is something in the human psyche that makes them want to fill in when no one's talking. And sometimes you just stand there and say, I'm not moving or saying anything until somebody volunteers. And eventually people will be embarrassed enough that somebody will volunteer. And it sounds crazy, but I learned that when I worked for Weight Watchers. As a leader at Weight Watchers, they want you to facilitate conversations. And their thing was, if you wait 10 seconds, somebody will speak. And it's amazing that it works.
thank you.
If you've demystified the position, you've told them what they have to do, and it's not as scary as they thought. I actually read the bylaws and then read what a normal secretary would do out of Federation at a glance. And then we had the nominating committee. We had 2 people step up. And the rest of the positions, because this is the second part of the same term, everybody was filled up, even though we only have 1-year terms. I don't know why they did it that way, but they did. It was probably a good thing because we got a secretary, and we didn't get anybody to be a secretary before this. And you've heard me, if you've come to my other classes, you've heard me talk about, we don't have a secretary. And I had a really hard time with that. But at least this time, 2 people stepped up, and they were 2 newer members. So that was good. So it's not really motivating. Maybe it's kind of tricky. There's a little trick. I learned that at Weight Watchers. Stand there and be quiet and somebody will speak. Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you, Dory. Anyone else have any questions? Looking for hands just in case. Sheila, do you have a question, hon?
Yes, hi, good evening. Hi, Dory. When you say demystify the job, sometimes telling them what they need to do oftentimes leads to another question of, why do you do it that way? and this has come into my world recently. And I didn't have a good answer. I said, and then when I heard you say, well, things are always changing, it's true. So perhaps they can maybe teach me a new way to do it. Is that something that?
Well, it's in your bylaws. So you have to do what's in your bylaws. If you want to change your bylaws, then you change your bylaws. So that's something that probably can't change that easily.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I missed.
What the job is in your bylaws.
Yes.
Secretary has to take the minutes. She has to have them out in a certain amount of time. She has to do this and that. And then Federation at a glance just fills that out a little bit. They're the same thing with president, first vice president, second vice president. It's in your bylaws. You can't change that.
No, I mean, not change it, but a new way of doing it. You know, perhaps they say, well, why do you introduce it this way? You know, how about if it's that way?
You could do any. Well, you have flexibility in what you do as president.
Right. Yeah. That sometimes when I try to perhaps explain something, and they'll say, well, why would you do it that way? What if we did it a different way? And then I do have to stop and say, well, you know, let me check that out. And maybe that you might have something there.
There's no reason, especially nowadays, why you should be doing some things in an antiquated manner. You can change anything you want to fit what works for your club, with the exception of what your bylaws say. So that's the guiding rule, is what your bylaws say. If your bylaws say that the minutes have to be back in 10 minutes, or 10 days, they have to be back in 10 days. If the bylaws say the president has to do this, the bylaws told me that I had to have a nominating committee the month before we actually got one, but that's because we were on Zoom and some things don't work on Zoom. Having a minute of silence doesn't work on Zoom. It works in a group meeting, but just sitting there for a minute, people just think you're nuts. You know, dead air space on Zoom doesn't work, but dead air space in a meeting works. So you have to remember the media you're working in too. So, you know, and remember that no one is going to expect things to be the same. They've been through a lot of change. And the other thing is, every time the president changes, they expect everything to change. One of the things I'm going to start doing is doing the collect at the front of the meeting instead of an inspiration, because I always forget it. It's been a problem that I've always had with the club meetings and the district meetings. So I just did it in the beginning, and then we didn't have to worry about it. And there's no reason why it can't be the inspiration. I've had some grumblers, and it's like, okay, so what? This works for me. There's no rule that it has to be at the end. That's something you can think about.
We have two. Sorry, Dory, didn't mean to interrupt. We have two questions on the floor.
Okay.
Corinne, you had a question?
Thank you. Dory, you're so great. I just love hearing you lead us in leadership, I just want to say. And I want to ask, what comes to your mind when you think about gelling a board? I feel like, we need to come together as a team. And I'm a first vice president, but I feel that need, and I wonder what tips you might have about that idea.
That comes from the president. And one of the things is to have more board meetings or less. We don't have a lot of board meetings because I don't find them useful. And I have one member that no matter what I say is going to tell me I'm wrong. So I'm not going to give her that opportunity that often. And I do things special for them all the time. I have some Ruth Bader Ginsby, I can never say her name, pins that say they have her initials on it and have her face on it. That's what they're going to get next meeting. I do things like I have these for the next meeting because I contacted as my last resort the Firefighter Burn Institute to have the firefighters come talk to us. So these are little fire hats. Everybody's going to get a fire hat sucker. No, they don't cost much. You can get them on eBay or
Amazon.
Yes, thank you. I got new medicine that just doesn't help my brain much. It doesn't let me think fast. So you can do fun things like that. I did these things for the leadership. I keep showing you all this stuff. I like stuff, little fun stuff. These say, see what the buzz is all about. California Federation of Women's Clubs Leadership 2020-2022. And eventually, when we have a meeting in person, everybody that comes will get one of these. But we haven't had an in-person meeting. They were supposed to go for the February board meeting, which was the Leeds board meeting. And currently my screen is sitting on a box of them. I bought like 1,000 of them thinking that I'd have lots of meetings to give these away. Not happening. Okay, so you get over it. But think about little things that you can do to smooth things over. And then you either have more meetings or less meetings, depending on what works for you. With me, one of my members is just never going to say anything nice. She's just not, you know how some people just aren't nice people? And we have some of those, and you just move on. Okay, next person.
Charlotte Smith. Charlotte, you have a question.
Yes. Did you say the collect?
Yeah, or collect, whatever you want to call it.
Well, if it's not collect, I don't have any idea what the word collect means.
Neither do I.
So let's call it collect, because it is something to collect us and bring us together.
If that's what you'd like to call it, yeah. I was taught that it was the other. So I've been here a long time, so that's why I call it that.
Thank you.
Both ways. It's okay. You know what? Go with the flow.
Okay, it looks like Sheila has another question. Sheila?
Okay, one more question and that's it from you, Sheila.
I'm terribly sorry. I don't know how my hand got up, but I did appreciate that the thoughts that are going on here, and that it is true that we cannot go back and you know, sometimes we just need to explain that perhaps there are new and better ways coming our way. Turn it into a song. That's Pam's world, I know. Thank you,
Okay.
Dory.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else need a secret handshake?
Now that may be something I need.
In Volunteerville, I know Wendy liked that one.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like Diane Waterhouse has a question. Diane?
Okay, Diane.
I don't have a question. I just looked up collect. And there is another term. It's a short general prayer of a particular structure used in Christian liturgy. It appears in lots of different religions. So anyway, there is a different meaning other than collect. So but it doesn't tell how, well, it does tell how it's pronounced, but I don't want to have to decipher that. Just wanted to say that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, it's almost 8 o'clock, so I thank you all for coming. I appreciate everything that you've had to say. I hope that you learned a little something, maybe to have a tidbit to take away to your clubs. A little bit, you know, if you just learn a little something and then the next time a little something more and the next time a little something more, because I'm not that wise. I'm streetwise. I worked with all men. They taught me to think on my feet. They used to do jokes that I learned to be rapier swift back at them because they were not always the nicest. I learned to have a thick skin, so it's okay. I love every one of you. The good thing about Zoom is that we can do this.
Yes.
I see her, Jill. Louis left a long time ago. He hasn't been back. He's off doing something else. And it looks like there's somebody behind Corinne. Or is that your hair? Yeah, we all have our little visitors, but thank you all for coming, and I appreciate it's really hard to be able to read the group in Zoom. And if you're used to speaking out loud at meetings and stuff, it's really hard because you're used to feeding off the group. So thank you all.
Back to you, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dory. So we have recorded this workshop. It will go on Facebook very soon. So look for it tomorrow. Tell your friends about it. And if you are looking for any of our other copies of workshops, they are in Dropbox. They are on our YouTube channel, which just happens to have the same name as our Facebook account, which is GFWC, California Federation of Women's Clubs. That launched last week. And Sonia and Debbie are working hard on getting all of the workshops up on YouTube. Lynn Youngstrom, why don't you unmute yourself? Let us know if you have anything to add about the next tidbit.
Okay, the next one and our last one for April is next Sunday, April 25th, 7 o'clock. It will be our CFWC Past Presidents Forum, and it should really be interesting. They're going to share everything with us. If you need a link, just send a request to reservationscfwc@gmail.com and I'll send it out to you.
That's fun. There is life after the presidency. And there's a big life. So that's a big part. You know, when your club invests in you to be a leader, or the state invests in you, the district invests in you to be any kind of a leader, you do pay back and you do step up to the plate and happily do something that you're good at, hopefully, and that you like, because not all of us are good at math. That's not my job. You're not going to find me running for finance, but you know what? Thankfully, other people are very good at it, because my brain, it does not go left. It is completely creative. So it goes right. So I'm right where I need to be right now. Anything else, Sonia Holtz, to add?
No, I just want to ask if you guys have anything happening during Volunteer Week and you want to share that with the CFW Facebook page. Just put a hashtag with CFWC on it. I look at it every single day and share everything that's sent to me every day. So I would love to see what you're doing. And I just want to thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Thank you.